Yes, we have found two wonderful speakers today. So thank you very much for being with us. We have Dr. Dina El-Dakhs, the Chair of Linguistics and Translation Departments, the Director of Applied Linguistics Research, with an interest in language learning and teaching, psycholinguistics, discourse analysis, and pragmatics. I'm very proud of myself because it's very early in the morning for me to get through all that lot. And Dr. Tahira Hoke, who is the aide to PSU's president, director of the Evaluation and Academic Accreditation Center, and a sustainability fellow. Congratulations. With interests in motivation, sustainable evaluation, and trauma-informed pedagogy. Yes, again, wonderful. It's a Saturday morning, too early for me, I'm afraid. Anyway, thank you very much to both of you for being with us here today. And I believe it's going to be a reflection, a key to future learning. So I'm genuinely looking forward to this. So Dr. Dina and Dr. Tahira, the floor is yours.
Can you just, hello, can you just please allow me to share screen?
Yeah, I've just ended mine. You should be able to now.
And I cannot start my video.
Ooh,
I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. There we go. Oh, something burst into life there.
Technical difficulties. Okay, technical difficulties. It can't be an online conference without some technical difficulties.
On that note, Kirsty and Paul and everyone, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
It looks great, Dr. Dina.
Shall I start or?
Yeah, I think the mic is ours.
Mic is yours. Okay.
I will start then. Okay, I will start. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Christy, for this great introduction. And I would like also to thank the organizers. Really, thank you very much for this invitation, for Dr. Tahira and myself. This is a true pleasure and honor to be with you today. Our topic today matches with the theme of the conference, reflection, reviewing, and revisioning. And we're talking about reflection, a key to future learning. We've divided the session as follows. We will be talking about with the reflection activity 1, overview of reflection, and then reflection models, Gibbs reflective cycle and examples, reflection activity 2, advantages and disadvantages, and then some final tips. And we'd like to start with a little activity. So for you, what is reflection? I'm looking at the chat and I'll be following your ideas. What is reflection? In one word, 2 words, whatever you think reflection means to you. Feedback. Feedback is repeated. Why? Mirror. Feedback repeated again. Looking back. Outcomes. Evaluation. Yes, very important. Brainstorming. Mirror again. Evaluation. Feedback. Reflection. Deep thinking. Yeah, I agree. Retrospection. Mirror. Data analysis. Evaluation. Being aware. Thank you very much. Okay, looking for the big picture. Yes, thank you. Evaluation. I think here evaluation and feedback are the winning words. Awareness again is repeated as well. Consideration. Recap. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, okay. It's all of these things. I do agree with you. So let's look for a definition with Dr. Tahira. Dr. Tahira?
Thank you so much, Dr. Dina. So what is reflection? The conscious examination of past experiences, thoughts, and ways of doing things. Its goal is to surface learning about oneself and the situation and to bring meaning to it in order to inform the present and the future. It challenges the status quo of practice, thoughts, and assumptions, and may therefore inform our decisions, actions, attitudes, beliefs, and understanding about ourselves. When it comes down to reflection, reflection can be used in many ways, allowing us to improve our own practice to gain better outcomes in the future, increasing and improving our performance and skills, increasing our awareness of abilities and attributes, as well as our evidence for these, developing and expanding our employability, evaluating the quality and the success of our action plans, applying theoretical knowledge frameworks to real experiences and using this to expand our understanding of the underlying theory. So when it comes down to reflection, some points I want to highlight is that as teachers, we all have a lot of reports to do, whether you're teaching elementary school or your higher education. And usually there's reports where we get an opportunity to reflect on our course reports. On another level, for those who are the principals or in our context in higher education, who are the program coordinators, there's annual program reports where they bring all those course reports and synthesize the results. And then on another level, an institutional level, here it is, we get an opportunity to also reflect on the performance of all of the courses, all of our programs, and even as well as our management practices, which is really important to the satisfaction of our teachers, as well as our students, and last but not least, our staff. Then there's an opportunity for reflection in our students. Yes, so we get student feedback. As Dr. Dina highlighted, a lot of you said that reflection is feedback. Yes, and I always encourage my students to not be afraid of evaluation. It only can improve you. Yes, and that's from a psychological perspective, right? And so when it comes down to feedback, we get feedback from students, from our supervisors, from our peers, our surveys, as well as even our post-course encounters. And I know as being a teacher for over 18 years here in higher education in Saudi Arabia, it's always been a wonderful experience when our students come back and say, you know, I remember when you taught me this, and I know how it made me feel, and it was really important to my life. That's part of the joy of being a teacher, right? And not only do we get to reflect in terms of our reports and our surveys, but then there's also our student achievement, right? I always tell my students, sometimes we're just as nervous when you're taking your final exams. So it was really important to us for our students to achieve great grades, right? But not only that they get high grades, but also they achieve the learning outcomes, and we really get to see them performing those. And again, we get these opportunities for those post-course encounters, whether it's right after they leave our final exams, or even when it comes down to, I want to highlight even during the exams, right? When the students are asking those questions, there was perhaps that exam question that wasn't as clear as you expect it to be. And you know it wasn't that clear because even your A+ students are asking the same questions. The last point I want to highlight here is in terms of content. And so here it is, as teachers, we get opportunity to teach a lot of different topics, but then the question becomes, are students really going to be prepared to deal with real world situations? Are we teaching 21st century skills? Are we considering sustainable development goals? Some of you might be very much aware of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I have a little picture there which highlights the 17 goals. And what's related to all of us is quality education. And if you visit the website, which we'll have the references at the end of this presentation, there's a lot of points for us to consider. Are we making sure that we're supporting the sustainable development goals? What's really excellent for us is in higher education, we even have our opportunity from the Times Higher Education, they've contextualized those for us. And perhaps you'll find different organizations that do that for your the level that you teach at as well, for elementary schools, for high schools, for higher education, and even for adult education outside of those formal contexts. So just trying to make sure that we are integrating contemporary and emerging issues, whatever's going on in our world right now. Every time we wake up and we look at the news, I'm sure that if the kids are anything like I was, my mom would be listening to the news when I got ready for school, and I would hear what's happening, and kids are paying attention. So when it comes down to your classrooms, how do you, in the most diplomatic way, integrate contemporary emerging issues so that they're aware of not only what's in the textbook, but also what's going on in the world? And so then with all that, we have another activity for you. I'll pass it on to my colleague, Dr. Dina. Dr. Dina?
Now, in terms of what Dr. Tahira has just shared with us, how we can use reflection, why do you think, in your own opinion, in your own experience, reflection is important for us as educators? Now, I'm looking again at the chat, and I'll be very happy to look at your answers. To improve our instructional practices, thank you very much, Mariam. To develop our performance, I agree. We can develop, of course, it's all about idea of continuous improvement, right, and continuous development. So yes, to develop, I agree again. Improve my teaching, yes. Skills enhancement, yes. Now we have all the, I know that the following session is about upskill or stand still, and I love the title actually, and yes, skills enhancement is very important. Clarify the weakness points, improvement and interference for better, to reimagine the experience, to generate future action plans for sure, to reach our educational goals and exit ticket. Excellent. I mean, I'm really impressed with all your ideas and suggestions to upgrade, to improve our performance, to solve problems, to keep adjusting techniques. Exactly, it is extremely important. And with that, I hope that you agree with me that we need to know an effective model in order to do evaluation in a way that we will get effective results. And this is why I just would like to share with you some of the models that there are. You will find plenty of models online, and you can choose the one that suits you better, by the way, despite the one that we will choose for our presentation. But for example, there is the reflective model in which you start with what, and then so what, and then now what. This is one example. Another example is the reflective cycle, the integrative reflective cycle, in which you look at, discuss, or you consider the experience itself that you went through, and then you reflect on the action, and then you go through the theory, and then you prepare for another experience. As you see, all the models that we are going to talk about in reflection are cyclical in nature, because you always go through an experience, you learn, you reflect on it, you learn from it, and then you go ahead to another experience, and this is life, isn't it? Another model, the 4 F's of active reviewing, in which you discuss what facts that happened or when or you faced, and then what feelings did you have, what findings do you come up with, and then what is the future for you, what will you do then based on that in the future. Another example is the CAR framework of reflection, in which you discuss the context that in which the experience went through, what action you will take, what the results are, and then so what you learn out of this. Another one is the 5 R's framework for reflection: reporting, and then we respond to this reporting, we relate to it, to our life and our experience, we reason about it, and then we reconstruct. The model that we will discuss in more detail today is Gibb's model of reflective cycle. And we chose it because we felt it is more convenient to us, and also it has somehow clear description of clear stages. But as I said before, it's your call to go and explore the other reflection models and to think which ones are better for you as educators, or which one maybe you would like even to train your students to use, because reflection is a very useful tool for all of us for better learning, as we all agree. In this model, in Gibb's model, we start with describing the experience we went through, and then we describe our feelings during this time, and then we evaluate the experience they went through. Then we go to deeper analysis of the situation. Then we reach our conclusions, and from there we make action plan for the future and for continuous improvement. And to illustrate, we will have 3 examples for you before we ask you to go ahead and share your own reflections about the experiences that you have been through. I will start with 1 example, and then I will pass it on to my colleague, Dr. Tahira, to explore 2 other examples. So for my examples, let's take it step by step. Now, for description, this is the chance where you describe the situation in detail. The main points concern what happened, when and where did it happen, who was present, what did you and the other people do, what was the outcome of the situation, why were you there, and what was to happen. For example, this is a situation I'm sharing with you to show the description stage. In a group work assignment, we divided sections according to people's strengths. When we tried to piece the assignment together, it was written in different styles, and therefore we had to spend time reviewing it. This was the description of the situation. After described it, I start to consider my feelings. We need to explore our feelings and thoughts during that experience. What were you feeling during the situation? What were you feeling before and after the situation? What do you think other people were feeling about the situation? What do you think other people feel about the situation now? What were you thinking during the situation? And what do you think about the situation now as well? So just because of time limitation, I made it very brief. And I just said, I thought our plan would work and felt good about it. When we had to rewrite it, I felt frustrated. As for the evaluation stage, this is your chance to evaluate what worked and what didn't work in the situation, to be as objective and honest as possible, to get the most out of your reflection, focus both on the positive and the negative aspects. So ask yourself these types of questions. What was good and bad about the experience? What went well? What didn't go so well? What did you and other people contribute to the situation, whether positively or negatively? In my evaluation about the same situation in which we had to rewrite because of we did not expect the writing not to be coherent, the process of dividing sections went well. However, it didn't work. What didn't work well was not having foreseen or planned rewriting the sections for coherence and writing styles. Now we come to deeper analysis. And this is your chance to make sense of what happened. This is your chance not to focus on details as what you were doing earlier, but this is your chance to extract meaning out of these details. You want to target the different aspects to what went poorly or what went well. And if you're looking to include academic literature, this is the natural place to include it. So you will ask yourself questions like, why did things go well? Why didn't it go well? What sense can I make of the situation? And what knowledge, my own or others, can help me understand the situation? And when I try to reflect on this situation, what I thought of is, or to analyze this situation, what I thought of is that the dividing the work went really well because we relied on the strengths of the individuals. And this matches quite well, for example, with Belbin's team roles model, in which we divide the roles according to action-oriented roles, people-oriented roles, thought-oriented roles. And we try to distinguish between those who could be better shapers, coordinators, team workers, specialists, etc. However, the reason piecing work together didn't work well. What happened is that we were so focused on finishing quickly that no one would raise a concern. And the last part can be explained here by groupthink, in which members of a group make a suboptimal decision because individuals are afraid of challenging the consensus. So based on this analysis, what are my conclusions? And in the conclusion part, you make conclusions about what happened. This is where you summarize your learning and highlight what changes to your actions could improve the outcome in the future. So what did I learn from the situation? How could this have been more positive situation for everyone involved? What skills do I need to develop for me to handle a situation like this better in the future? And I found that I learned that using people's strengths is efficient. Moreover, planning how we want the work to look before we go off on my own is helpful. Lastly, I will remember the dangers of groupthink and what the theory suggests to look out for. So what is my action plan? And at this step, you plan for what you would do differently in a similar or related situation in the future. It can be very helpful to think about how you will help yourself to act differently. How it will make sure this happen again if it was positive, or it won't happen again if it was negative. Just the realization, other times you don't want to realize only, but also reminders might be helpful. So you would just ask yourselves, like, what would I do differently? How will I develop the required skills I need? And how can I make sure that I can act differently next time? For my situation that I've been sharing with you, I would say I will use Belbin's team roles to divide group work in the future, since it worked really well with me this time. I will suggest writing one section together before we do our own work, so we can mirror that in our own writing. This will ensure that we are more on the same page before we divide the work. And I will speak my mind when I have my concerns, because I remember now the dangers of groupthink. With that, we just try to share with you the different steps of the model. And with one illustrative example, I will pass it on now to Dr. Tahira to share two more examples, because before we ask you to share your own ideas and your own reflections. Dr. Tahira?
Thank you so much, Dr. Dina, and thank you for the example. So with this second example, we're going to start with from a professional perspective in terms of presentations. Have you ever been interrupted in the middle of your presentation? Well, consider the following example. First of all, the description. Last Monday, I was giving a presentation to the board. The purpose of the presentation was to provide an update on my department's progress in the previous quarter. I only got through slide 3 until everything fell apart. The finance director asked me a question on the figures. I got flustered. He already did not agree to the direction of my presentation. A big debate ensued, and I didn't even complete my presentation. How would that make you feel? Feelings. In the lead up to the presentation, I felt very nervous, as it was not regular that I give a presentation to the leadership team. I felt panicked when I asked a number of questions. I felt like an idiot when the time was up and I hadn't got past the introduction of the presentation. Evaluation. I heard from my boss that this kind of thing happens all the time in these meetings. After that, I felt sad, though I thought I messed up, and angry with the finance director for interrupting me. Analysis. On reflection, I should have given a copy of the presentation to each of the leadership team in advance. I also should have followed up with each of them in person to check that they didn't have an issue with what I was about to present. This would have helped calm my pre-presentation nerves, knowing that I had gone through it with everyone. Conclusion. On balance, I realize that these things happen and presentations do sometimes go wrong like this. The good thing is that I could see a way to move forward, which was a good chance of a better outcome next time. What's the action plan? Distribute the presentation to key stakeholders in advance, so don't have that drama like we had before, as well as run through the presentation with anyone who might have issues with it. This will also serve as a practice run for the presentation. So with that example, again, giving presentations to perhaps your supervisors, your leaders, sometimes those don't go so well. So just reflecting and considering that you can always improve in any presentation, even if you, for me, I've been teaching communication skills for over 15 years, and I learn something new about my communication skills every day. And so moving on to the next example. The next example is related to a student failing, and as a teacher, it doesn't usually feel too good when a student fails. And here you have an example that I'd like to share with you. The description: a student failed my course. Every class, I encouraged her to ask me questions, use the technology required for the course, and get tutoring. Each time I spoke to her in English, she rarely responded when asked another student to translate for her. She also tended to be absent for social responsibilities with her parents. Although she acquired the technology resources for the assignments, and she still failed the course, unfortunately. She explained that she told her father that she did not want to be in the university. How did this feel? I felt it was my responsibility to encourage her to do her best while she's at the university. I also felt that if she can't pass this course, which is one of our easiest courses at the university, she will not be able to pass any of her courses. Evaluation. Although I reached out to her academic advisor and encouraged her to get support from the tutoring center, I felt like I should have been a little bit more aggressive to motivate the student to complete the course. In other words, I was too nice. Analysis. Per Ryan DC self-determination theory, motivation can be affected by the extent to which one feels autonomous, competent, and relatedness. Specifically, although my student had support, she had a low motivation due to the lack of control to switch to another university, limited English language proficiency, and lack of interaction with the academic support service staff. Conclusion, students who lack motivation might require group support from the teacher, advisor, and counselor when possible. And one other note here, which might be relatable to teachers, is that this student had actually shared that she was being bullied in the class as well. Yeah, so in addition to elementary school, middle school, and high school, bullying does happen in the universities as well. And so what's the action plan? Requires students to communicate more at the beginning of class to assess their ability to communicate, participate, and fulfill course requirements. Highly recommend tutoring for students who appear to be failing the course by the 6th week of the term. That's in the context of a 16-week semester. And share additional tips with students who are first-generation university students, which is key as it relates to the sustainable development goals and making sure that we retain those students, especially when they come from families where they might be the first one to go to the university. So with that, we have another activity. Dr. Dina.
Thank you, Dr. Tahira, for these examples. And now the time that we're all waiting for is to listen to you, because everybody's learning from each other. And this is, I think, the best thing about conferences. So if you would reflect on an experience that you went through, I know it's not easy. We will give you a few minutes to think. And you try to go through description, feelings, evaluation, analysis, conclusion, and action plan. What experience would you like to go through? And I will ask our organizers if they would kindly agree that the person who would like to share can raise their hand and we could allow them to unmute. Is that okay? Or are they already allowed to unmute?
Hang on. Well, there we go. As per your request, if anybody has a question and they wish to speak, now is the time to raise hands. We do have hands popping up already.
Yes, we need them to reflect on a situation.
Okay, so we want people to volunteer and people to volunteer. Oh, we actually have some brave people who want. Okay. There are some people who are less brave to volunteer because a couple of hands have disappeared. Right. Okay. Is anybody brave enough to volunteer?
I think they need like a couple of minutes to think about situations that they went through, and they would like to reflect on in terms of what happened, which is the description, what were their feelings, and then how they evaluate the experience, and then if they could analyze what happened, explain what conclusions they went up with, and so what action plan they decided to take for the future. I know this takes a bit of time. If you could just think for a couple of minutes, and I'm sure that you will come up with suggestions. So let's take a couple of minutes.
All right.
Yes,
Radwa. Yes,
Yes.
Radwa. We should talk about the situation that you have already been through and you reflect on, and you share with us your reflection just like we did now. I see Lamia saying would like to share. If you would like to share, just raise your hand.
Okay.
Or unmute yourself if you can unmute yourself.
I think we do the raised hands and
Yeah, I think we can unmute them.
We can.
Okay. Right. I think who was first to raise hand?
Lamia Adil would like to share.
Hello.
Go for it. Okay, Lamia, thank you very much for being our brave first volunteer.
Thanks.
So
It's
please.
an honor and a great opportunity to share in this conference and this orientation. Thank you. First of all, I would like to present myself. I'm Lamia Adel, educational consultant in an international school. And sorry for my pronunciation. My major is French, not English at all, okay?
It's fine.
That's okay, no problem.
Okay, I will describe first of all, I have experienced more than 27 years in education field, but when you are a teacher, it's totally different when you are a teacher to give a feedback to your HOD or to your head. It's totally different, and you don't know anything, and you don't know how to reflect your feeling or describe what happened because of the experience. But when you are an HOD, you distinguish what's happened during you were a teacher. So at the beginning, I couldn't describe my feeling when someone asked me about my reflection, about what my performance. And I tried to describe why I did this and why I didn't do this as the instructional plan or the lesson plan. Then I describe my feelings that I'm a little bit motivated or overwhelmed or excited. Then I try to know how to evaluate and to do self-evaluation for myself and to analyze what I did before and to put pros and cons or advantage and disadvantage and to try to improve my performance. The conclusion is it based on the one that you are sitting in front of him or her, how she will extract your reflection and how she will let you feel satisfied, how she will get from you or how she will focus on the positive points first, then try to guide you toward the right track. Also, it's all about constructive feedback, how you will revisit yourself or replan for yourself and put as the next step action plan and to focus on what you want to improve and what is your strength area. That's my opinion, yeah.
And thank you so much, Lamia, for sharing your experience. And what about the action plan? Did it work well for you in the future?
Yes, for sure. But we need to know that the action plan need to be flexible. Flexible.
Yes.
If I put my goal as a SMART goal, my time frame, every detail, who will help me, what are the tools I will use, I think it needs to be flexible. To be changed, to be modified, to be updated. Sometimes urgent case happen, sometimes time is not with me, sometimes new update or new technologies or new strategies. I prefer to know it and to develop it. So I think when you put an action plan, you need to be sure that it's flexible, to try your best, but you know it's flexible and it's not a big deal that you don't follow it up 100%. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lamia. I think the school where you're working in is very lucky. Thank you very much for this awareness. Thank you. Now, do we have any other hands up?
Yes, we do. Do you want which one, Paul? Which one? Do you go in order?
Oh, I don't know. Let's go really technical. Eeny, meeny, miny, moe. Right, we'll go for Marwa Galal. Marwa Galal, if you can hear me. Oops.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Marwa Galal. I'm academic coordinator, and the situation that I'm going to speak about happened when I was working as an HOD. I had a teacher, and this teacher, I received a lot of negative feedback about him. So I was disappointed, and I decided to attend a lot of sessions for him to make an evaluation. And then when I visited the class, make the class observation, I discovered that most of the negative feedback are really right. They were true. So I set one-to-one meeting with my teacher, and I asked him to analyze the session and what did he do in it. And then after analyzing it, I told him about my feedback. And he thought that some of them are valid points and some are not. And then we had discussion, and we found a conclusion, which is he will try my way until he create his own way to solve his problem. And then the action plan went well.
Thank you so much, Marwa. It's very important, especially when we are leaders, I think, to use reflection and to use it patiently with people, because we are all having our strengths and weaknesses, and we all need to support to improve our weaknesses and to contribute to our schools. So thank you very much for being an excellent leader. Thank you so much for sharing as well.
You're welcome.
Do we have another hand?
We have many hands. Okay, next Samar Othman, please.
You've muted them.
Well, there's a button there that says allow them to talk. So. Samar, hello.
All right. Do you want to go with
next? Amira Omar, please.
Amira's here.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I will just like, my name is Amira Omar. I've been teaching for 10 years, 6 of them as an HOD science. I have an experience with an activity actually I did with my students. It's about like watching a video and answering some questions or taking notes. So first I started this activity as just like taking notes, and it ended up as like 6 out of 20 students only managed to take notes. The others, it was too quick. We played again. So I tried to just not modify the activity into just like writing questions at the beginning of the video before watching the video. And then we share the answers for those questions together. So I analyzed the problem, that the problem was about the pace, about the awareness. The students they were not aware of what they were supposed to do. It was not clear enough. And I changed it, and the first action plan was writing questions. Actually, I went through the cycle twice, because at the next time it worked nearly with like 10 of them or nearly 12 of them. So I thought maybe I can adjust again with another tweak about it to make it better. So I shared the question. Actually, I didn't ask them only to write the questions. I asked them to read the question together, give it a thought about like 1 minute discussion. Okay, think about it. The answers would be like clear in the video. And then we played the video, and surprisingly this time, like nearly all of them got most of the questions, not all of them, all of the questions, but they managed to get some answers of the question. But that was really beneficial that we reflected, and it's not about only using an activity and I have to use it. We can adjust our activities. Even if I'm teaching like 3 classes, I can just do the activity with 1 class. If it like failed to get the output out of it, I can change it for the other 2 classes. That's actually what I did about the activity.
Thank you so much, Amira. I'm very happy that the 3 examples we got taught us so much. This was an excellent that you were reflecting on an activity while somebody else reflected on dealing with a teacher and how to improve his or her performance. The first speaker was dealing with a plan that she was doing for her school. So, I mean, as you can see, the model can really be applied on different situations. Also, the idea that the model can be used once, twice, 3 times. We may not get the result we want from the first time, but as long as we know that we're improving every time, we can use it again and again. And this is the idea of the cyclical nature of the model. Also, the idea of being flexible and allowing flexibility to influence how we implement our action plan is extremely important as well. Being patient, I think, is a key to reflection, because you reflect, you learn, you try to improve, and you also give time to action plans. Thank you very much. And really, Dr. Tahira and I would have loved to listen to more stories We're learning so much from you, but with time, I think I have to pass it on to Dr. Tahira to share with us some advantages and disadvantages of the model and some final tips before we listen to your questions. Dr. Tahira?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Dina, and thank you to our audience also for sharing those examples. I know in contexts like this, you know, here you have a situation that anytime we share, there's always possible implications of what you're sharing. Maybe someone's thinking about the job that you have right now. Is it related to the example that you're giving? Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's related to a job that we might have had 20 years ago. And so with that, I want to highlight that I really appreciated all of the examples as well. And I want to encourage you to consider the fact that this process that we're going through is really to encourage us to be reflective practitioners. Yes. And so whether we're heads of departments or we're teachers or we're working in a situation where we need to be a consultant, here it is, there's an opportunity for you to reflect always on how to improve what you're doing. And then also I want to highlight that one step in that Gibbs model, which I really appreciated, which was the analysis. With each one of those examples, there's research-based evidence out there on how to improve that particular model. I just like to highlight the example with Amira. Really, I had an amazing teacher like you before, Amira, when I was in high school and I was taking economics, and my economics teacher used to make us take notes the first 10 minutes of every class, and we had to listen to CNN. Can you imagine? And on economics, and most of us didn't understand what was being said, but because of that, it refined my skills for taking notes. And so don't give up on that. And so with that, I want to highlight some of the advantages and disadvantages as we encourage our students to be critical thinkers. It's also for us to critically think about any models or any theories that are out there. And so first of all, when it comes down to advantages, the advantages of some of these approaches in terms of reflecting on your practice is easy to understand and easy to use, allows you to learn over time. Over time, it gives you more balanced and accurate judgment of your performance, prepares you to deal with similar situations in a proactive manner, and brings closure to challenges faced with the situations that you might have been in. And it also may fuel optimism. As a positive psychologist, notably, I'm actually originally from Los Angeles, California, and I've been living here in Saudi Arabia for over 20 years now. And I really encourage my students, my faculty, and everyone I know to always make sure you have a box of happy thoughts. Yes, here we are post-pandemic. We are survivors, and our students are survivors as well. And it's important to consider that we've all been through a bit of a trauma, and we're just trying to look forward and keep moving. But with that, you're teaching students who might have lost family members, and maybe some of you might have lost family members and friends. And we just need to make sure that we stay positive as much as possible. And anytime we go through a challenging situation, that we try to keep a box of positive thoughts that brings us out of that mopey feeling. Yes. And so with that, I'm moving on to disadvantages. Again, being critical thinkers. What could go wrong with these kind of models? Well, starting with, I want to highlight what I said, that mopey or depressed feeling. Yeah, it could get you down. You start thinking about this a little bit too much, or thinking about all those situations. If it could have, we tend to say, there's a wise saying, you shouldn't say, if I coulda, shoulda, woulda, right? And so if you say that too many times, it might bring you down. So just looking forward, and not necessarily about just piling up all your weaknesses in 1 hour, but thinking about the specific weakness, or I like the way one of my colleagues said, area of improvement. We can exchange that word weakness with area of improvement as something to work on. And so disadvantages is that sometimes it's not really proactive, it's reactive, right? And it could be superficial reflection just to get through it, especially if it's on a report. It could be difficult for people to open up, and maybe you could come up with some more advantages and disadvantages as well. It can be difficult for people to open up and discuss their feelings. Yes. And you got to be careful with who you share those feelings with sometimes. Special cases might be overgeneralized and not apply to everything. And also current emotions might exaggerate feelings experienced during the reflection. Last but not least, if the reflection is delayed, misinformation might decrease the accuracy of memories and hence decrease the effectiveness of the reflection. And I have to highlight, this one is a bit of a psychological one here. And so when you think back to something that happened, let's say maybe 5 years ago, your accuracy of recalling that information may not be at its best. And so with that, it could still be positive and help you, but at the same time, time it may have some misinformation in it in terms of who were the actors in that situation, what actually happened. You might exaggerate a little bit more, but in the end of the day, just trying to be a reflective practitioner and do that as soon as possible is really important. And so we have a few final tips here, and I see some comments. We'll try to catch some of those comments. Yeah. Yes, I see some comments, and perhaps Dr. Dina could help me. I hope everyone is hearing some points. And so the final comments here is just, again, to encourage us to be reflective practitioners. I want to highlight just one example of that I had to use. Actually, I used in terms of reflecting on what was the extent to which I was using 21st century skills in my own course. Sometimes some of those reflective opportunities might be through conferences. And so we had an education evaluation conference that was organized by our Ministry of Education here in Saudi Arabia. And it was an opportunity for me to reflect on what did I enjoy teaching in my class, and what was distinctive about my courses, and how was I going to be able to support the sustainable development goals in terms of making sure my students were employing critical thinking, communication skills, collaboration skills, and creativity, and making that a very active moment inside of my courses, regardless if I was teaching psychology, communication skills, personal development skills. How do I make sure that my students know some of the latest technology related to their respective fields, especially when you're teaching from an interdisciplinary perspective? So with that, some final tips I have to share with you is target something small. Take notes when you're reflecting, keep practicing. It should be definitely a positive experience. But as some of you may know, even when you have negative emotions, it could sometimes a bit of negativity or challenges can actually motivate us to grow. And so take action reflections, and also reserve positive reflections for challenging days. Like I said, my box of happy thoughts, and use research-based strategies to integrate 21st century skills across courses, as I was highlighting. Dig deep into your particular courses and areas that you teach. And yes, there's what they have prescribed to us to teach inside of the books, as well as the curriculum that we have to follow and the page that we need to be on. Yes, I did teach in high school before, but there's also what you wanted, the message that you want to share with your students, as well as your colleagues around you. And also just making sure we take care of ourselves. Yes, as teachers, we tend to be very altruistic and giving to all of the students and everyone around us. And we're very passionate about what we do. But as you're going through this passionate experience, make sure you still continue to upskill and reskill on how to infuse sustainability in your course, into your courses. Again, I noted the Sustainable Development Goals, as I am a sustainability fellow here at Prince Sultan University, and just encourage you, if it's a new area for you, to consider this topic. And I know you have a great conference here. Perhaps it may come up a few times more during this conference. And with that, I just really want to highlight some of the references that we had here. Here it is. I noted DC and Ryan here in terms of self-determination theory, and it's really excellent about the series that it has multiple aspects related to education and other fields in terms of how we can reflect on what improves our motivation as well as our students' motivation. We also have reference to Gibbs there in the model that we went through, and also an opportunity for you to learn more about how we integrate sustainability within our own courses in our institution. And there's a wonderful reflection toolkit, which was heavily presented inside of this presentation. And then last but not least, Times Higher Education. Again, an opportunity for you to learn more about how universities are actually trying to contribute to sustainability. And we're not just talking about recycling or reusing when it comes down to our products, but also when it comes down to the quality of our education, just making sure we improve that and we expand it and we give as much access to everyone as possible. So thank you so much. And here's our contact for
we will be very happy actually to hear from you. So please, this is my email. This is the email of Dr. Tahira. We'll be very happy to hear your questions. I already can see the questions, quite excited about it. And thank you very much for the session.
Thank you, both of you. That was really interesting. Okay, really interesting and informative. We don't have a huge amount of time, but we'll attempt one of the questions. Okay.
Shall I?
Which one you can see them? Would you like to choose which question you fancy Okay.
Well, I can see that since we've just been talking about the Sustainable Development Goals and
Yeah.
Dr. Tahira has just been talking about it. So why not take the question of Minatalla, Dr. Tahira, if you'd like. How can the reflection skills be related to SDGs, Dr. Tahira?
Yes, thank you so much for this question. So when it comes down to our reflection skill, what I want to highlight is that when in the Sustainable Development Goals, I actually am doing some research with higher education institutions right now. And what I did is I asked quality assurance directors as well as leaders in their universities to reflect on our experience that we went through during the pandemic. Some of you may be familiar with accreditation. I'm the director of my accreditation center, and what we have to do is usually a group of international experts come to verify the quality of your education. Perhaps in your respective schools, you also have accreditation process. You have to fill out these reports, you have to do all these interviews. Well, a good part of that went online. And so we needed to reflect on what was the quality of those reviews. Was it better to do online? Was it better to do virtual? Or was it better to go hybrid? And one of the reflections that came out from the initial results of this study is that hybrid allowed us to use less paper because we used to fill up a lot of binders there. And so when it comes down to reflecting on the SDGs, we were able to also ask our practitioners, how does this process relate to the SDGs? Right now, there's no right and wrong answer for this. The United Nations, as well as our respective countries who are following and members of the United Nations, are really encouraging practitioners to make those connections. And so in my area, we made the connection on SDG 12 in terms of consumption. We significantly reduced our consumption of paper, of course, during the COVID-19. We went virtual. That was a positive outcome. And so going back to Sustainable Development Goal number 4, in terms of quality education, important area is our ability to extend lifelong learning. And so again, just to bring it home, you're here at this conference, you're going to be engaging today. Some of the information you learn is going to be reviewed for you, but hopefully a lot will contribute to your lifelong learning. And I just want to encourage everyone with that topic. Yes. And so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Tahira. Actually, this is a topic I think that requires a whole session of its own. We'll be happy to give it some other time, inshallah. I can see just one time for one more question, I think.
Actually,
Really?
we're actually running out of time, okay? Because Mr. Rob Howard is up next, and he.
Okay, fine, all right.
Okay, but no, we will forward the rest of the questions to you, and if you have time to answer them, that would be great, and then we can post it on social media so that people can see the answers to the questions.
All right, so if you just allow us to thank everyone for being here, for participating in our workshop. Really, we loved it. And I would really like to thank the organizers. And I would like also to thank Dr. Amira Mohsen for inviting us for this presentation, for this conference. A lovely conference, and we've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tahira, Dr. Dina. It was a pleasure and very informative and enjoyable as always. And we're looking forward to maybe extending on that topic on a separate webinar for you and Dr. Tahira, because it seems it has sparked a lot of engagement. So